Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm really proud, and I have to say, maybe a bit of explanation behind the name. I'm afraid it does originate from hippie Canadian parents, and I think they only realised that possibly they maybe made a mistake on my sort of wedding day. I got married in the middle of Wales, and the rain lashed down like you've never believed. And I have to say, generally, the weather does follow me, as I found out when I was speaking at Exeter University last night, and the rain again was lashing down. But I'm pleased to say the sun is shining this morning, so we've been lucky today. So it's great to be here. I think this is a real opportunity and really great to be speaking to all of you. For those of you who don't know me, I do have a bit of a croak in my voice at the moment. So I'm hoping if my voice fails, maybe you'll all stand up and give me a standing ovation at any point. I think I will get very suspicious if some of those letters start falling off behind me. But I think that's really just a segue to say it's really a challenging time for businesses and for policy makers at the moment. But I think at these sort of challenging times, I think it's why it's even more important that we need to think creatively and work more closely together. And I think I think the Great Southwest and the campaign that you're building here and the fact that you're all coming together here today really epitomizes all of that. I don't know if some of you have come across a book by a fellow economist called Tim Hartford. His latest book is called Messy, which I have to say, as a parent of 4 young children, feels like almost a Bible for me personally. But it's really about how it's so important to collaborate and to work together, and that's how you really bring about innovation. And I think innovation is also very much what the Southwest is about. So I'm great that we're doing that. I am an economist, so I thought it would be helpful if I gave some of my thoughts on the overall sort of economic backdrop that we're facing. But then I really also wanted to talk about some work that we've done with the CBI about what drives growth across the regions in the UK and how hopefully we're providing some tools and information for all of you to take that and really decide what needs to be the priority for your region and how you can really put your name on the UK map, but importantly, globally. And I think that needs to be the level of ambition for the Southwest. So it's true, the economic backdrop is really one where we are seeing that sort of shift down in growth across the UK. It is still a picture of growth, though. So we expect to see growth of around 1.5% over the next year. It is one where it's a tale across different sectors. We're seeing a weaker sterling. That's pushing up inflation. It's making things a bit tougher for households. But at the same time, we see employment growth still growing. Employment is at record highs. That comes with its own challenges, and I know skill shortages across the region is still one of the things that businesses talk to me about. So while we're seeing that sort of household spending slowing, we're also seeing that firms are very much still investing in IT, in technology, and cloud computing. And when we look at manufacturing, yes, some of our manufacturers are undoubtedly seeing a boost to their export orders. That's partly because actually the global picture is stronger. We're seeing strong growth in the US, in the Eurozone, and that's helping some of our exporters. And if you put that alongside the weaker pound, things are looking better for some of our manufacturers. But at the same time, I think it's fair to say the business community is definitely feeling on tenterhooks at the moment. And we know from what businesses are telling us from around the country that uncertainty is holding back some of the longer, bigger term investments that we want to see and that we need to sort of get our economy firing on all cylinders. So I'm sure we're all hoping for some good news when Theresa May returns from Brussels. I think we do need to see that transition in our new relationship with the EU so that we can all have time to plan for that new relationship and to get those bigger investment projects working. So I think fingers crossed on all of that. But I think the thing that really comes across to me when I'm traveling around the country and speaking to business leaders around the world is and around the UK is that their biggest concern is the domestic agenda in the UK gets lost in some of these in some of the issues around Brexit and the EU negotiations, and in some sense that the energy that's being put into that can sort of suck the oxygen out of all of our capacities. And I think we really do need to fight against that and to really focus on the things that we need to do to drive businesses here in the UK. And really put that place in industrial strategy. And I think here in the Southwest, there's so much to build on. Talking to students at Exeter University yesterday and learning about some of the work that they're doing and some of the work the university is doing in terms of driving innovation, particularly around the circular economy and businesses that are making better use of our finite resources and sustainability, which is something that's very close to my own heart. And I know Pennon Group as well is a real innovation leader in this space and certainly doing so much around sustainability. And we're certainly pleased that Susan Davies, their CFO, will be joining our new regional council as our chair. But I know there's so many different innovative businesses here across the Southwest, from Yo Valley, which I feel like personally, with 4 young children and a fridge full of Yo Valley milk and yogurt, I feel like I'm personally helping drive their business. But from one of my favorite named for a business, Ministry of Cakes, to the innovation we see in Plessy Group. Some of you may know that business, but it's really a global leader in innovation in LED and lighting technology. So I think there are so many things you can shout about to the world that are here in the Southwest. And I couldn't even tell my kids that I was coming anywhere near Devon or Cornwall, or they all would have been here with me. So I think that really speaks to the natural resources you have, which is, when the weather is right, is really one of the best places to be in the whole world. So I think so the question is, what do we do now, and where should you all focus? And we did do this work around regional growth in the UK. And the stats stand out, though. The UK is one of the most unequal regions, has one of the highest regional inequality in Europe. It's only in London and the southeast where standard of living now are higher than they were before the global financial crisis. So there's still a huge challenge there. So what we sort of, and look, this story is about huge variations, and we did some work looking at sort of output or productivity, so just looking at how much each region is producing relative to the number of people and the hours they are working. And on one level, it tells a familiar story. So London and the southeast is one of the most productive areas in the UK, and you go through the regions with Northern Ireland towards the bottom. And I think there's much to build on in the Southwest here. I think actually it's sort of underplayed. Actually, the Southwest is much more productive on average than the Northwest, than the east of, and only just behind east of England and Scotland. But I think one of the other things we really found from this project is you need to look beyond the region as a whole and look at some of the local areas, because there's huge variation within each region, and I know you'll be able to talk about that. There's different challenges in Cornwall than the challenges we see in Bath. So I think as you're going through your conversations today, that's an important thing to sort of hold in your mind. So of course the big question is, what do we do about this? How do we get growth firing across all regions in the UK? And so we looked at what the sort of drivers are around that. And I know you'll come on to talk about some of these today. So it is undoubtedly about education and skills. It's about making sure our young people are leaving school with the right skills. And one of the things that came across from this project is that actually people don't move as much as you might think. And actually your core workforce are the people who are leaving school and then moving into the world of work. And if there's huge variation in what they're attaining at different schools, then that's a real challenge. And I think we do need to look at how do we attract great teachers and great leaders into education, and how do we make sure that we have the right funding for that education. That's part of the long-term challenge. But there's also a huge challenge for businesses in terms of how we all learn throughout our careers. We're all living longer. We're all working. Work will take up a much bigger proportion of our lives than it has done previously. And we need to think about how we learn throughout our working career. So I'm sure there's much to be done around that here. And of course, it's very much around exports and innovation. We know that companies that are exporting are more innovative, are more productive, and the more productive and innovative businesses are more likely to be exporters. So there's a virtuous circle, and I think there's some great examples here in the Southwest to build on that. And I think importantly around infrastructure as well. Yes, it's about the connections between roads and rail, but it's also about our airports. It's how we become more connected with the global economy, and I think that's particularly relevant to this region. And it's also very much about digital connectivity. I think we know that the Southwest is, it's an area of natural beauty, and it will be harder to sort of build some of those bigger transport connections. But I think digital can really play a part, and the way that people are working more flexibly and working from home. And there's so much that the Southwest has to tell around that. So we've produced as well these sort of scorecards for 173 different regions or local economic areas around the UK. And really this is open source. If you Google CBI regional growth, you'll find these scorecards. And we wanted to make these available so every area, so that the LEPs, and there are some great leadership happening around here, could sort of see how they're performing. You can see where you are, how you stack up in terms of those economic outcomes, those measures of productivity that us economists like so much. But what does that mean in terms of how your schools are performing? How are your businesses working with local schools? What are the number of sort of high growth firms? And I think actually one of the, you can see some of the things that the Southwest, and this is a scorecard for the LEP in this area, the heart of the Southwest. Some great examples of obviously high levels of graduates in the workforce. Actually right here, some very strong school performance, but that's not true across the whole region. But at the same time, as I'm sure some of you, probably a particular pain point for lots of you, that mobile connectivity around the region isn't there throughout all of the Southwest. So that may be a real priority for all of you. So I think that's really what I wanted to say in terms of some of that work that I hope will be useful to all of you. And really, we wanted to use that to really foster the conversation and to really help regions come together, build their brand, and really think where they can focus, where they can work with central government, but come together to make the Southwest truly great, not just for the UK, but to look around the world. And we're certainly here to support you on that journey, both the CBI in general, but working with Deborah Waddell, who some of you may know, our truly excellent regional director here. We also have a new head of regional policy, Mia Anderson, who's really keen to work with strategy leaders at local government and in businesses to really help drive this picture. So that's all that I really wanted to say. I'm really keen to hear from all of you, to follow on these discussions at coffee and otherwise, and maybe have a chance for a few questions. So let's back the Southwest together.